Well, all right, welcome back to As It Should Be. Paul Bertolino here, and well, unfortunately, it's time for another rest in peace video, another tribute video. As for those of you who follow the channel who have seen my older videos, you know I did one for Charlie Watts and one for Mike Nesmith when they passed. I should have done one for Christine McVie, and I intended to, but time got away from me. I still will make a Christine McVie video. Actually, it's just going to be very, very late. But right now I'm doing David Crosby. I'm here to talk about David Crosby because he just yesterday, as I'm shooting this, I'm not sure exactly when I'm going to put it up. It's going to be soon, but as I'm shooting this, the news broke just yesterday that Crosby had died. I was sitting here, right here, quite literally right here in the world famous As It Should Be studios. I think I may have been editing, or I may have even been responding to some comments. I'm not really sure, but I was sitting here, and my phone lit up. And I looked over, and it was my mom. My mom was texting me, okay. And I looked over, and all she wrote was, David Crosby has died. And I just, it was just like a punch to the gut. I just dropped everything and just, it took a deep breath, and I stood up. I had to stand up, and I walked. I had to pace. This was a pacer. I had to just walk around the room and just whoo, whoo. It was one of those like, oh my God, oh holy shit. And yeah, and which, as I'm sure it was for a lot of people. I mean, the thing is about it is that it's not unexpected. Crosby himself has been expecting this for decades at this point. I mean, let's be real. And he's known that he's been basically due to go for a long, long time now. He just kind of accepted that he was being given a lot of extra time, and he was using it, to its full. Like, he was really using that time. He started putting out a lot of really great records late in his life. I mean, he kind of went, you know what? I could go any day now, do the work, write the songs, record the albums, play the shows, and he did. He absolutely did. I mean, I saw him one time and one time only, and that would have been about maybe 4 years ago. I want to say maybe 2018 or 2019, something like that. He was here in New York, and he did a free show at Lincoln Center, and I went, and it was absolutely amazing. It was incredible. Like, his voice was 100% intact. And I don't mean relative to this or relative to that. Well, it was kind of, it was 100% intact. It wasn't a deeper version of his voice. It wasn't like a gravelly version of his voice. He wasn't, hitting flat notes. It was that youthful sounding, warm bath, soft, beautiful voice that Crosby always had. It was absolutely incredible. And you kind of know going in that Crosby still has his voice, because you go to YouTube and you watch his videos, watch videos of him performing, recently, and it's like, wow, he sounds really good. But man, going to see him there in person and him being right in front of you singing with that voice, it's like, whoa, wow, I cannot believe he can still do this. And he would be the first to tell you there is no reason he should still be able to do this. But he was doing it, and he was doing it amazingly, and lucky. I feel so lucky to have gotten that chance. But anyway, so what I'm going to do here, I guess before I get too far into blabbering and rambling in whatever direction I go, this video is going to be in the same sort of format as the Nesmith video, for those of you who saw that one, where the first bit of it is just going to be me talking about Crosby and my own personal sort of feelings and experiences in relation to Crosby. And then in the latter half of the video, I'm going to give you my top 10 Crosby songs. Okay, I have a list of 10 Crosby songs here. I've ranked them and everything, and that will be later in the video. And for those of you who don't want to watch me ramble and you just want to see the top 10 songs, I'll do a timestamp down below so you guys can go straight to that. All right, so Crosby. Where do I even begin? He's just, for people, I'm 53, so for people my age and certainly younger, there's always been Crosby. I was born into a world where, Crosby, Stills, like the first Crosby, Stills and Nash came out in 1969. 69 was when I was born. So boom, they were always there. And of course, you had the Byrds before that. So yeah, Crosby has never not been, from my perspective, right? And always being a music person, I've always been, of course, aware of him and always been a fan of some of the music. I didn't grow up being really a major fan of Crosby. Crosby was more kind of like this idea or this image, because when growing up in the 70s, you had this image in your head as a kid of like how hippies looked. And, there was that sort of classic look of, the long hair and the kind of floppy walrusy mustache and the fringe, the brown suede fringe leather jacket. And beads, of course. And so growing up in the 70s, that's my idea of what a hippie looked like. And which came, of course, when I got a little bit older. When I was a little kid, I remember, I had like that Ricky Seagull kind of longer shoulder length hair, and I remember somebody coming up to me as a kid when I was with my mom, maybe around 73, and I was around 3 years old or something, going, "Oh, aren't you cute? Are you a hippie? Are you a hippie?" And I'm 3 years old, and I'm standing there going, because I didn't know what that meant. I'd heard the word, I just didn't know what the word meant, and I was like, whatever that is, I don't think I'm that. And so, then you move along and you start seeing the images and you learn, and and you get that sort of the Easy Rider sort of image of a hippie. And Crosby really was the poster boy for that. He was the epitome of that in every respect. Not only in the way he presented himself, and the way he looked, his music, his beliefs, everything that he was about, right? He was almost like the ultimate example of all of this. But there's also a little bit of a personal sort of connection, in a sense, in a vague sort of way, basically through my mom and my uncle. My uncle Rick, my mom's older brother, passed away in 1983, and he was only 30 years old. And he my mother has always had a soft spot for David Crosby, not only because she likes his music, but she always had a soft spot for him because he kind of reminds her of her brother. It's my Uncle Rick was kind of that kind of guy. He kind of was a Crosby-ish looking guy, and he maybe is slightly more on the biker side of things than the hippie side of things, even though he wasn't a biker. But you know what I mean, just that kind of a vibe. But I'll probably pop a picture up here. Yeah, there you go. That's my Uncle Rick there, kicking it Crosby style-y. Yeah, so therefore that kind of passes down to me. Like I kind of have the warm soft spot too, because he is a little Uncle Rickish, or was. Yeah, but as time goes on though, and you start getting a little older, you start going your teen years, I started really getting into the Byrds, and started really getting into Crosby, Stills and Nash, and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and buying all those records. And it was really in the 80s, in my teen years, that I really started to become a fan. And you heard all that stuff on the radio. I mean, Deja Vu. I mean, is there even one song on Deja Vu you haven't heard on the radio at least 100 times? I mean, really, and deservedly so. I mean, obviously that's an absolutely incredible record. But the thing about that is that there were other records that I didn't really know about until much later. I mean, like really crucial records, like the solo album, like David's solo album, If I Could Only Remember My Name, from 1971. I actually did not know about that record in any capacity until maybe the early 2000s. And I learned about this record through Mojo magazine. Somehow I never had run across it. Maybe I'd flipped through the bins and seen it there and just like flipped past it because I didn't know what it was or whatever. But I was looking through an issue of Mojo, and they had a picture of the album cover, If I Could Only Remember My Name, and right above it said David Crosby, If I Could Only Remember My Name. And I laughed because I thought it was a parody. I didn't think it was actually a record. I thought Mojo was like doing a parody piece and had like put together this image of David Crosby looking into the sunset, like a double exposure, and called it If I Could Only Remember My Name. Because I immediately, when I see that, I think, Crosby and his history with drugs. You know what I mean? So I thought it was funny. And then I read this, and I'm like, oh shit, this is really a record. And they're just raving about it, and I thought, wow, reading about this record, I thought I need to buy this. I need to find this. So I pretty much immediately went out and picked up a copy, and man, what a record that is. I mean, a lot of you guys have knew this long before I did. Well, I found out. What a record. I'm not really not that big on the 2 opening tracks. Music is Love, and I never really was a big fan of Cowboy Movie, although I did just listen to it yesterday, and I kind of liked it a little bit more. Maybe my opinion of it was colored by, the news, I don't know, but that record really kicks in for me on the 3rd track, and just after that, it is just like, wow, it is just gorgeous. It's actually beautiful. And I mean, sure, you'll notice I don't have any Crosby related stuff on display in the background for decoration, because I don't have any Crosby related records here. I have the records, I just don't have them here. You've heard me say this a million times before. I have all the Byrds records. I have the CSN, CSNY records, and the Crosby and Nash records, and all that kind of stuff. My CSN records really only go up to Daylight Again, right? I cannot go past that. I'm American Dream or whatever, and all the Looking Forward. No, but some of Crosby's more recent records are amazing. Like, I can't believe how good they are. Like, they're really great. Like, there's just really good, rock solid stuff. I mean, Crosby always kind of had that jazzy sense about him, and that got even stronger, I feel like, on some of his more recent records. I mean, his last album, For Free, that's a great record. I mean, I put that on my... I don't think I made a video. Did I make a video of it? I think I did. My favorites of 2019 or 2020, whenever that record came out. Was it 2020? I don't remember now. But the year it came out, that was on my list. That was a great record. And, that's a good, solid, strong way to go out for Crosby. Now, Crosby, of course, he was a complicated character. Some people love him. Some people hate him. Some people, have complicated relationships with their feelings about Crosby because of, because he, Crosby was Crosby. And I have gone through my periods with Crosby, like, sometimes being really having good, warm feelings about him, and other times just being like, ugh. But in recent years, I've mostly been pretty, warm and fuzzy about Crosby. You know what? It's because he just turned into like this really kind of jolly old Santa Claus kind of old man, really, and he's really funny, and I love how he's just so direct and honest and just no bullshit. And I realize if you're actually dealing with him directly and working with him, he could be a pain in the ass with that. But when you're watching him in an interview and he's bringing that out, it's really great, and it's really entertaining, and I always really liked it. He was doing great videos. There's great videos on YouTube of him doing like a Dear Abby kind of answering questions for Rolling Stone magazine. If you haven't seen those, go watch those. Those are great. I mean, I loved those. I wanted him to do like hundreds of those. Unfortunately, he didn't do that many, but they're out there and they're great. In the documentary that came out just a few years ago, how great was that? And warts and all, he doesn't deny being an asshole, and yes, nobody will talk to me, and you know what? It's my fault. And he owned up to it. People still didn't want to talk to him, but who knows what's really going on behind the scenes, and what really, like, I always wondered, I mean, does anybody know? I have this long-standing question of, like, what was it with Graham Nash? Graham Nash went through decades with him. Decades. You and I could only barely begin to imagine what Nash probably had to put up with going through these years with Crosby. But he stood by him and said, you know what? Whatever, I still love Crosby. And then finally hit the wall. What did Crosby do or say? We all know what he did with Neil Young, because that's been more publicized, what specifically it was. But with Nash and with the band, I don't know what he did that finally made Nash just go, you know what? It really, honestly, if you know, because I don't know and I haven't been able to find the information, put it down in the comments, because I don't know specifically what it is. I know, Graham goes out and he killed the spirit of the band or blah blah blah, whatever. He says these kind of, he makes these sort of generalized statements, but I don't know specifically what was the moment, the thing that happened. But in the end, how, one way or the other, Crosby good, Crosby bad, his talent was massive. I mean, beyond, come on, that guy was one of the best vocalists. I mean, he had an absolutely incredible voice. He was a phenomenal songwriter. He was easily the most interesting songwriter out of those guys. You know what I mean? Like, with all his, he just wrote these weird songs. He wrote these jazzy songs. That's probably why none of the big CSN hits are his. There are songs that you would hear on the radio, like Almost Cut My Hair or stuff like that, but like big mainstream singles, none of those are Crosby's. You heard Deja Vu. I remember hearing Deja Vu on the radio, but that's a pretty weird song. That's a weird song to hear on the radio, and it's not going to survive in the you're not going to hear that nowadays on an oldie station quite like you're going to hear, Teach Your Children or Sweet Judy Blue Eyes or Carry On, and that kind of stuff. He was the weirder, kind of more challenging kind of songwriter in some ways, and I really loved that about him. Like, I really like the jazziness of the chord choices that he makes and the feel of some of his stuff, like Tribal Gathering. You know what I mean? I love stuff like that. Well, anyway, while I'm finally starting to talk about actual music, why don't I get into my top 10 Crosby songs here? Now, for one thing, I want a little disclaimer before I do the top 10 here. There's one very important song that I love so much, that's one of my favorites, that's not going to be on the list, and that is, and I'm telling you right now, it's not going to be on the list, and that's 8 Miles High. And that's simply because Crosby didn't hardly write, like, he's part of the writing credits, but that's mainly kind of a Gene Clark song, really. Gene Clark with a little bit of McGuinn and Crosby. Crosby, as far as I know, from what I understand, didn't contribute that much to that song. So I feel like it's just kind of cheating. It's not. There's just so many great Crosby songs to put on a mere 10-song list that I feel like that's just not enough Crosby song to qualify. But it would be I will tell you now, it would be very high on the list if I felt it qualified for the list. Okay, so that out of the way, I do have 4 runners-up because it is so difficult to do merely 10 Crosby songs. He's just one of those artists where, like, choose 10 songs. Are you kidding me? Yeah, so, and there obviously could be way more runners-up, but I just had 4 that were really just like trying so hard to get on the list, and they didn't quite make it. And that's Deja Vu, Guinevere, Dolphin Smile, and Draft Morning. Come on. Those are all those songs. And to be honest, the 2 songs from Notorious Bird Brothers, Dolphin Smile and Draft Morning, are my 2 favorites out of those 4. Like, those in particular were really, really, really just banging on the door trying to get on the list. But all right, so coming in at number 10, I have Lady Friend. Yeah, Lady Friend. Now that's a failed. That was a standalone single from 1967. It was a failed single. It came out. It's a great song. Obviously it made my top 10. I think it's a great song. But yeah, it didn't really become a hit. It didn't really. Yeah, I don't recall. Like, I didn't hear that song until I got the Younger Than Yesterday reissue from late 90s, early 2000s that included bonus tracks, because it's a bonus track from that disc. Yeah, because you didn't hear it on the radio. I never heard it on the radio as a kid. I never heard it, and I didn't have, I never ran across the single anywhere. I didn't know it existed until that CD reissue. And unfortunately, that didn't bode too well for Crosby. Him finally having a single that was his composition, and it completely failed. That was kind of almost like the first kind of like when the Byrds are going, okay, do we really need this guy? Yeah, but you know what? It's still a great song. Okay, so number 9, I have Almost Cut My Hair. Yeah. Now, Almost Cut My Hair. Oh, what a classic that is. obviously we've all heard it a million times. I mean, I don't think it was actually a single, was it? That's just one of those songs that's really just an album cut that has been played on the radio hundreds of millions of times. Everywhere, worldwide, right? Everybody knows this song. And, this is from, of course, Deja Vu from 1970. And I just love the raw, live, in the studio sound of this track. It's so great. And I remember when I first used to hear this song, or first used to kind of notice it when I was a teenager, I thought it was funny. Almost cut my hair. I happened just the other day. I just thought it was funny. I liked it, but I didn't take it seriously. I thought, oh, he's being funny. And I guess, there kind of is, it isn't to be taken that seriously, but I just thought it was almost like a comedy song, really. And, but I just always have loved that track. I mean, it's like the band sounds so good, and it's kind of has a bit of an edge to it that Crosby tracks don't normally have. And a big part of that is the presence of Neil Young. It has that kind of Neil's here with his guitar, and Neil and Stills are going head to head kind of vibe about it. And man, such a great track. Oh, it has always been one of my favorites. All right, so coming to number 8, Renaissance Fair. Renaissance Fair, yeah, from the 1967 Younger Than Yesterday album. Ooh, man, that track is criminally short. It's under 2 minutes. It's like a minute and change, a minute and 50 something. It's just under 2 minutes long. It is crazy short, but it's so good. I mean, it was, Crosby wrote about going to the Renaissance Fair. Basically, he went to the Renaissance Fair in Southern California in 1967 and wrote this song. And I kind of had a similar experience. I never went to. Well, I guess I did go to the Renaissance Fair once, but I had a similar experience at a different event. When I was 17 in 1987, some older friends of mine took me to the Grateful Dead were playing, and they were playing at this place where there was a park across the street. And we didn't even go to the Dead show. We went just to hang out at this tribal gathering, as it were, of the hippies at this park. And I was 17. I'd never been to this kind of thing. I'd never seen it. I mean, and we get there, and it's basically, I felt like I was in the 60s. It was like, oh my God, this is like the footage I've seen. This is just like I've read. You've heard about it. You've read about it. And I was just completely floored by this. And I wandered off away from my friends by myself and just walked around. And this song, Renaissance Fair, I think that maybe I'm dreaming, just perfectly expresses how I felt just walking around, being a 17-year-old kid going, wow, man, it's just like the 60s. And there were all these people, these vendors with tables selling stuff, selling tie-dyes and crap. But there was a couple there that had a table, they had a bunch of stuff, and they had some clothes, dresses and jeans and tie-dyes and boots and stuff. And there was this brown suede fringed jacket. And it was small and tiny, it was my size. It was $15, and I bought that thing, and I went through the rest of high school. That was my favorite jacket. On Monday at school, I walked in wearing that jacket like I was David Crosby. And the thing is, I wasn't trying to be David Crosby. It's kind of like how I mentioned earlier in the video here. That was just sort of like the general kind of like catch-all, like, now you're a hippie. When you're wearing this jacket, you're a hippie. And anyway, I just really loved that jacket so much, and unfortunately I don't think I have it anymore. But yeah, anyway, Renaissance Fair. Okay, so coming in number 7, I have Traction in the Rain. Oh man, Traction in the Rain from If I Could Only Remember My Name from 1971. I mean, everybody, what a classic. I've already said what a classic record that is. And this is easily one of my favorite songs from an album full of incredible tracks. The thing about that record is that a lot of the tracks are great in the context of the record. There aren't really that many that are just great standalone songs. And there are a lot of great standalone tracks, I guess, if you're going to, as far as mood music goes. but there aren't a lot of real like songs on that. There's a lot of mood pieces and a lot of vibe pieces, but there aren't a lot of songs. Now, Traction in the Rain is just like a really, really great, simple, just beautiful song, and I love it. I love it, and it comes in at number 7. Okay, so number 6, Tribal Gathering. Tribal Gathering from Notorious Byrd Brothers from 1968. Oh my God. I mean, I already kind of talked about the jazziness. I don't even actually know the words to it. I've been a big fan of this record and this song for years and years, but I don't have the lyrics memorized for that song. But strange thing gathering of tribes. That song is it definitely has a little bit of a take five kind of vibe as far as the rhythm, and there's a little bit of a Vince Guaraldi does Charlie Brown kind of thing going on, but on a pop rock album. I mean, it's absolutely what a great like nobody else but Crosby would have put a song like that on a record like that. Actually, but that's the funny thing is Crosby himself did not put that song on the record. He would have had he remained in the band. As we all know, Crosby got kicked out of the band while they were recording Notorious Byrd Brothers, and honestly, my favorite songs on that album are Crosby songs, and that's the thing I always found kind of interesting about this is that they kicked out Crosby and decided they were going to go forward without him, that he was just kind of in the way and making things difficult. Didn't put him on the cover, but they kept his songs on the record, didn't they? As it should be, because those are some of the best songs on the record. I mean, obviously the Goffin and King songs are beyond reproach, but as far as the original songs, come on, man, Crosby has the best songs on that record as far as the original tracks are concerned. I mean, really, come on. And so I could see why they wouldn't want to lose those songs, but okay, so my number 5 song returns us to the If I Could Only Remember My Name album with Laughing. Yeah, what a song that is. And I remember when I had all the other Byrds records, I had all the Crosby, like one of the last things that I picked up, at least as far as 60s and 70s stuff is concerned, was the Byrds Reunion album from 1973. I thought, I'm going to pick this up. And I looked at the back and I saw they did Laughing, and I thought, oh, a Byrds version of Laughing? Oh yeah, I'm buying this. And so I bought the record. It was probably like $1 or something. That record has never been expensive. Actually, it might be now. But back then, you could get it, like they paid you to take out of the store. So I bought that record, I took it home, and I was just like, I was underwhelmed, let's just put it that way. And I really I was not into the version of Laughing that's on that album. But according to Crosby, from what I understand, it wasn't him that said, no, this is the song we're doing. Apparently Gene Clark he was the one who suggested they redo that song for the album. And I really, like on paper, the Byrds doing Laughing sounds like heaven, but man, it didn't work out on that record at all as far as I'm concerned. But man, the original track on If I Could Only Remember My Name is just, for some reason I really hate this word, but I'm going to use it for lack of a better one, and because it's so appropriate, sublime. It's a gorgeous, that's the thing. I was going to say it's a beautiful, gorgeous track, but really, most Crosby songs are beautiful and gorgeous. Even like the faster stuff, even Almost Cut My Hair really is kind of beautiful. It kind of really is. All right, so number 4, I have Triad. Yeah, Triad. Now, Triad really wasn't on an album, it wasn't on a single. It didn't come out in the 60s. It didn't come out in its time. That was supposed to be one of the tracks on Notorious Byrd Brothers, or at least that's how Crosby intended it. But he couldn't get the others to agree. They were apparently clutching their pearls in horror over the fact that the subject matter of the song was a three-way, like a three-way polyamorous relationship. And these swinging 60s dudes were like, ooh, we can't have that. And so they were kind of, so they didn't want that song on the record. And Crosby didn't want, of course, everybody knows the story, Crosby didn't want to do Going Back, not because it isn't a great song, I'm sure he thought it was a great song, but he felt like doing, a Goffin and King song was a step backwards, because, they had come a long way as writers, and they had a lot of strong writers in the band, and they had a lot of strong songs, he wanted to put Triad on, and that, of course, one of the many things that brought them like this, and ultimately ended up with Crosby out of the band. But so yeah, they didn't end up putting it on the record at the time, even though they actually recorded it. Thankfully, because we get that as a bonus track on the Notorious Byrd Brothers record, and that's the track that I have here on my list. Well, the song really, but that's the track. But also, I mean, I guess really, I say, but really, honestly, my favorite version of the song is the Jefferson Airplane version. Oh man, that same year, Crosby gave Jefferson Airplane the song, and they put it on Crown of Creation. Oh man. Grace Slick singing that song, incredible. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, Triad at number 4. It should have been on Notorious Byrd Brothers. It should have been, but what are you gonna do? Okay, so number 3, a song from the first Crosby, Stills and Nash album from 1969, Long Time Gone. Oh yeah, Long Time Gone is easily one of my favorites, and now that is another one of those songs. I mean, to be honest, I'm not really sure. Sometimes I'm not as swift as about what has actually officially been put on a 45 on a 7-inch single and released. I don't think that was it an actual single. Of course, it was on the radio all the time. It's playing on the radio somewhere right now. In fact, even if Crosby was still alive, it would be on the radio right now somewhere. But I don't know if it was an actual single. But I mean, talk about a classic. I mean. I mean that's possibly my favorite song on that album, and which is saying something, because Sweet Judy Blue Eyes and Guinevere, such great songs. But I mean, Long Time Gone is just, it's almost the ultimate sound of Crosby, Stills and Nash for me. Like if I was going to point to one track that really kind of like really had like all the elements that I just love on those records, that's kind of it. I mean, you could easily point to Woodstock, or you could point to Carry On. There's so many great tracks, but Long Time Coming just has this sort of like to it that just gets me right here. Okay, and that's why I have it at number 3 on a list that has such treacherous competition. And I'm sure many of you have seen this, but if you haven't, there is this incredible video. It's on YouTube of CSNY on the Tom Jones Show doing this song live. Totally live, no backing track with the live vocal, no lip syncing, nothing. 100% live. The 4 of them on stage with Tom Jones doing this song, and it is absolutely devastating. It smokes. You haven't seen it. Kicks ass. Please, if you haven't seen this, please go watch it. If you are a Crosby fan, especially if you're a Crosby and a Tom Jones fan, this is it's an absolutely mind-blowing video. They absolutely kill. Tom Jones keeps up with them 100%. In fact, Stills is back there on the keyboard trying desperately to keep up with Tom Jones, because Tom Jones is owning the moment, really. And you watch Crosby, you look at Crosby, and Crosby is looking over Tom Jones with the hugest beam of a smile on his face, because Tom Jones is absolutely annihilating the song in the best possible way, and Crosby is loving every second of it. Like, he's turning it into a soul gospel moment like you've never seen. It's just absolutely phenomenal. Go seek that out, really. Long Time Gone, Tom Jones Show. Yeah. Okay, so coming to number 2, Wooden Ships. Yeah, Wooden Ships. That is, that's easily a number 2. Even above Long Time Gone, and I love Long Time Gone. Wooden Ships, that's another one of those sort of 1-2 punch songs, because with Triad you have the great Byrds version, and you have the great Jefferson Airplane version that I like even more, frankly. Well, with Wooden Ships, you have the CSN version and the Jefferson Airplane version. Of course, Jefferson Airplane covered this for their Volunteers album. And you know what? I'm not sure which version I love more. I was familiar with the Airplane version first before I was familiar with the CSN version. So I have a real soft spot for the Airplane version. But man, the CSN version is just like, I can't honestly say that the airplane version is better than that. So they're kind of like this for me. It's pretty incredible, and it's an incredible song. Now, this is another song. At the top of this video, I talked about not putting on 8 Miles High because it wasn't. Crosby kind of co-wrote it. Like, he didn't really write that much of that song. It's mostly Crosby's song. It's Crosby, Kantner, and Stills. Like, Paul Kantner from Airplane co-wrote it, and so that's a big reason why the Airplane were also doing it. But in this case, it's kind of mostly Crosby's song, so it's qualified for the list. All right, and I've always loved this one so much, and I don't know what else to say. It's Wooden Ships. I love this song. All right, so my number one favorite David Crosby song, and this is no contest. I didn't even have to think about this. Like, this was immediately boom. I knew this was number one. Everybody's Been Burned. Yeah, Everybody's Been Burned from Younger Than Yesterday. Last track on side one of the 1967 Younger Than Yesterday album. What a track! What a beautiful fucking song that is. And Crosby has no tracks on the first couple of Byrds albums because, of course, Terry Melcher was producing, and he didn't, for whatever reason, he didn't like Crosby songs. Lord knows why. And I'm sure that Crosby, I think people, when Younger Than Yesterday came out, people were thinking, wow, these songs are just getting so much better, and wow, Crosby's really suddenly like a good songwriter. He wrote Everybody's Been Burned in 1962. 2 years before there even was a Byrds. So, he had, like, when they went in and did Mr. Tambourine Man, he had that song. So how did that get turned down? Granted, I'm glad it didn't show up until Younger Than Yesterday, because I don't think it would have been as good if it had been on the first couple of records. Like, it was done when it needed to be done. And it's done exactly the way it needs to be done. It's basically it's musical heaven. It's musical nirvana. Everybody's Been Burned. It's probably, for me, Crosby's most perfect song and perfect track. The only thing missing from that is all the lush harmonies that you usually hear on one of his tracks, but it doesn't need it. It's not missing, really, I guess. I'm not wanting for it when I listen to that track. That track is perfect, and the song is perfect, and it's my favorite Crosby track. Everybody's Been Burned. All right, there you go. That's my blab about David Crosby, and my top 10 Crosby songs. A lot of people are probably going to be coming in and going, well, where's, Homeward Through the Haze? Where's Delta? Where's The Lee Shore? What about this song? What about, yeah, these are all great songs too, but really when it comes down, even songs from his more recent albums could potentially be eligible, but in the end, when I have only 10 songs like that just aren't going to make it on the list over those Byrds songs, those early CSNY songs, Remember My Name songs. Come on, But yeah, you could do easily a top 25, top 30 Crosby songs video easily, yeah. But I decided to be, a little restrained here and do only 10. But yeah, again, we all knew, as I mentioned earlier in the video, it's not really surprised that Crosby has passed away. It's really he's been unwell for a very long time, and he's been basically expecting it any day now for decades. And but that moment when it happens, it's like, it took my breath away when I saw that text, and just, I'm gonna miss Crosby. I'm gonna miss Crosby, and but we still have these great songs. So anyway, thank you for everybody for watching, and thank you for everybody who's been subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. And if you subscribe, click the little bell and all that kind of stuff that I usually say at the end of the videos. But most importantly, if you haven't really gone deeply into Crosby, maybe you have this idea that, oh, he's just some past it hippie guy with all these dated, ideas, and he was an absolutely great songwriter, great singer. Just go on a deeper dive. Listen to some of these songs I mentioned. Go watch that Tom Jones and CSNY doing Long Time Gone. he had so much great stuff, and you know, Godspeed to Crosby. Yeah, that's it. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.